I'm Brent Adams, and this is Caspar, and we're going to talk to you about some technologies that we have employed to try to make our collaborative effort as a speech and debate team more productive. And we've learned to become very disciplined about time, so I'm going to start the timer now. We are a debate team after all, so we have to be disciplined. To present you with kind of the sense of the backdrop under which we decided to employ these various technologies, I was hired to restart Poly's competitive speech and debate team. So we were starting effectively with no team. I have had a career as a lawyer, a lobbyist, a state official in another state. So I was embarking on this having not been in this world for basically 20 years. So 20 years ago, research and everything else was largely kept on notepads and file folders and in boxes, paper, essentially. And so in order to bring us up to speed and make us competitive as quickly as possible, I thought it was necessary for us to employ various technologies, all of which I think are applicable outside of the debate coaching realm, of course, which is one of the reasons I'm here. And so I decided to create a position called Vice President for Technology within the team. Caspar was fortunate enough to be tricked by this and to win the election to that office in a competitive election. And so Caspar's going to describe from his vantage point a little bit what the challenge was.
So what happens is at the beginning of the year, basically, we're all working around haphazardly. Everybody's trying to figure out how to write the cases, how to get everything together, how to share everything with each other so that we can all access all our research together. One of the problems with it was that this team would have all their stuff together, but then another team couldn't get the information that they had, and then this team couldn't get information. We all had to do our own research, and it wasn't collaborative at all. And we couldn't come back after 6 o'clock. So at 6 o'clock, basically everything was done, and we needed to extend our time as a debate team past that realm, considering we couldn't be in the same room together. So at around December, that's really when the office took a role, and I had to start coming up with the program on how to get everything together. And I figured out that we could use 3 separate programs that would make everything work together. And we decided to use Evernote, Dropbox, and Google. And here they are.
Yes, so this is the mnemonic device that I created to describe how we're organized. And the notion is that since the presidential election, every elephant in DC gets angry. So E for Evernote, evidence. Dropbox, cases. Google, administrative. And I'm going to walk through. Jamie, how do you know?
It says escape.
Escape, okay. These with you. So this is Evernote. The nice thing about, now this would be an applicable program for any of you working on group research projects. Because effectively debate is an extended group research enterprise. And in addition to debate, there's also an event called extemporaneous speaking, which where you draw a topic and you have 30 minutes to prepare a speech. So this is useful because if you draw a topic, say, on marriage equality, you can open this file and see articles pertaining to that particular subject. And the nice thing about this for competitive purposes is it's accessible offline. So you do not have to have an internet connection in order to access the documents in here. You can't sync when you are offline, but you can access the articles that have already been synced. There's another interesting feature of this called the Evernote Clipper. I'm going to show you a bit how it works. And it was really a bit of a revelation for me when that Caspar introduced. So I just typed Korea nuke. The current debate topic is the rise of China is beneficial to the interests of the United States. So that the whole issue with North Korea and China's alliance with North Korea has been pertinent. So the problem with research in today's, back in my day, I was opening books and magazines and using scissors and tape and glue. The problem with these days is that you've got all this junk on the articles. The nice thing about the Evernote Clipper, which is just an Evernote feature you have to download, and it's right here, is it will take the junk out, which is very nice. And then it will tell you where you can save it. So I'm going to save it in China.
There we go.
And there we
Everybody
go.
can access it. Everybody on the speech and debate team can now see that article
Yeah.
for everybody to look at during debates and during research time.
And everything is searchable. So there I just synced. So there it is. And the challenge is, right now, because this debate topic has been going on for some time, there are over 100 articles in this particular notebook, the vast majority of which have been gathered by my students. So they are really actively participating in this device. I've found that I've experimented with various technologies, and some of them there's no pickup rate, they don't seem to really become engaged in it, but this one has been highly effective.
Open an article, Mr. Arms,
Yes.
just to see how they look.
So here's the previously cluttered article that I just clipped. And it allows you to type in here as well. So you can type, captions for the article and things of that nature. Oftentimes, if an article benefits one side or the other, I will caption it pro or con so that people can quickly scan through the articles to see what kind of things they're interested in. And the search function is quite useful. I found it as a useful search tool in terms of the notebooks themselves. So
do all the students on the debate team share the one account?
yes, so they are all logged in. They all log in as PolyPrep Debate 1.
Yeah, that tends to be the most useful way instead of sharing the notebooks between everybody, considering we make multiple notebooks.
Yeah, you'd have to share each and every notebook separately.
And sharing them with 40 some odd students gets a little tedious.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the features of Evernote itself and why you have chosen that tool as opposed to others?
Well, as opposed to others, I can't talk to that because I'm not necessarily aware of the others. Caspar, can you talk a little bit about why Evernote specifically?
Well,
It was his recommendation.
Okay.
one of the other ways is that I'm not specifically aware of many other tools that do this, and I found that this fitted the needs that we needed. The other way that I knew we could share or have evidence offline was just saving as a PDF from the internet. But as we know, that doesn't get rid of the junk, and it also, we can't share it with other people. So one of the so basically it made everything come together well, and we can, as we said, we could add captions and everything, so everything's just a little bit simpler, and we can put headings over everything, so it doesn't just say North Korea. It says North Korea did this, and this is useful for this. So it keeps it also allows you to take notes like separately, so we can type up a little, what we would call an evidence sheet of just, here's a piece of evidence, here's a piece of evidence, here's a piece of evidence. So it basically just worked really well together in just one idea instead of having to we use 3 different programs instead of using about 8 different programs.
Yeah, I have never found, including when I was a kid, that getting together in a room to do research was terribly productive. So this is, and we have a euphemism on the team for an evidence meeting, which is translated means everyone runs around and does other things, because they don't work. So this allows people to work in a collaborative way, but on their own, because they're saving all the research in a shared location. I saw a question.
Attribution information is also saved?
Yes.
Alright. I think we should now head to Dropbox.
Okay. Well, this one, it seems to maybe have cut it off, so that's a terrible example. So it did cut it off in that one. This one, it was New York Times, but someone may have specifically typed that one in there. So sometimes, it's not a foolproof system. We would definitely, for our purposes, we have to be able to provide the source when we give the data. So we would need to, in that instance, manually type in the source. I oftentimes try to paste the article heading, namely the name of the article, into the top part, and along with that I'll put the source. Okay, Dropbox.
Yes.
So I'll let Caspar lead us on that part.
So as I said, we originally started the debate team, we normally used Google Drive, which allowed us to all collaboratively work in real time, and that was a great advantage. The main problems with that was that nobody was sharing with each other, so it was there's normally teams of 2, so it was literally both members of the team and the coach were shared, and nobody else could have access to what they wrote to be able to use what they said, and considering you might miss something, they have something better than you. So it allows us, so we use Dropbox to put them into one folder, and there's actually a notification right now. Somebody happens to be
Perfect.
Somebody happens.
We
to be
didn't plan
working on-
that.
Somebody happens to be working on one of our cases, and they're working on it, and we get notifications to know when they saved it and when they've worked together. So if I show you the little Dropbox folder, I can find it. So let me open the Dropbox folder. Polyforensics. And here are all the different events put into one place. It allows us to have them. So here's PF, this is the date, and here's everybody else's events. So everything becomes nice and organized, unlike with Google Docs where we'll end up with 40 different files in different places. Trying to search through them is really difficult. So if we go into the PF folder, which is our most extensive folder, and we go into China, we have 3 different folders, which allows us to have ready for review is basically I finished writing it, or I finished marking up the second time, and we want our coach to read it. So it makes sure that we're not editing it while while he's reading it, and that could get a little messy. But it makes sure that's one of our ways of foolproof helping the system along. We have everything put into people's names and team names, so that everything keeps together and there's not 40 files in one thing, because that's the point of having Dropbox. And if we look in, there's different revisions of people's files, and we get to keep the old versions as well as the new ones, which allows us to see how it's progressed and see, oh, this thing in the past was better, so now let's put that in and continue to work on that way. Yes.
In terms of keeping the old one, do you have to save it separately, or if auto?
Yeah, well, we basically, it doesn't save separately, but we tend to we have it set up so that whenever we do a markup, we create a new file, and we continue doing that on and on, so that every markup is something else.
So you label it as a markup.
Yes.
I've used both Dropbox and Evernote, and it's not clear to me why you would have both. What's the advantage, what's the distinction between using one for one purpose and the other for the other?
Because when we do, we like to use, one of the advantages of using Dropbox is we can actually use Word files. It allows us to keep the actual Word files, which is one of the reasons we actually switched to Dropbox, because our coach enjoys using track changes.
Right. Because in Google Docs, effectively, I'm rewriting it rather than, instead I'd like to, so I save, when I review something, I save it with the name markup in it. And that's not it. Here it is.
Just the kill.
Yeah. Well, that's not a markup, so that's a bad idea. So draft management is an issue in this, and folks have to be disciplined. I'll say, look, when this is a markup, right, Caspar?
Yeah, that should be. Do you know how to track changes on?
I'm sure it's
Sure, but I can see the point of being able to
Yeah.
put Word documents into the Dropbox makes perfect sense.
Yeah, so because I don't want to be just rewriting their case, I want to track changes so they can see my suggestions and what I'm cutting. And so Dropbox allows you to use Word documents and use the track changes feature, which I find very useful. So back to you guys.
So that's basically the major advantage of using Dropbox. And using them for different purposes also allows us to keep everything separate instead of them. I mean, having it all in one place is useful, but also keeping everything in different places allows us to separate them and make sure that things don't get confused. So that we're not Evernote and when trying to find evidence, we pull up somebody else's case, what somebody else wrote instead of its source. So that's one of the advantages of using them. Now I think my coach will come back up and start talking about Google Spreadsheet.
And we can go back to any of the topics we just discussed. But this is not terribly breakthrough technology here, but I found it extremely useful. This is simply a Google spreadsheet that I use to maintain my own schedule. And as you can see, this is today. I'm here at a conference. And what's useful about this is that students have access to this, as well as my colleagues and some parents. So they can just go into this document and sign up for a time with me. So some of these times have been signed up by the student themselves, and it's recurring, so that's an appointment that will happen every week. And what's nice about this is it avoids those instances in which students say, oh, I wanted to meet with you, but I couldn't find you, or they send you an email at midnight saying they want to meet with you. This way they can go on this sheet at midnight and sign up for a time. So you avoid that situation where they complain that they're not able to get in touch with you or whatever, because this is a way to know exactly where I will be at any given time.
You set these up each week?
Yes, and it's pretty easy if you do it far enough in advance, so I can just copy and paste, because particularly for these recurring meetings, they do recur. So yes, you do have to manually set it up, Now, one thing that's nice about this too is that you can establish notification rules such that right now it's established, so if any changes are made, it sends me an email. So that way I know if a student has gone in and changed it to add themselves. Because otherwise, a meeting might have been established and you wouldn't have known about it. And I use a spreadsheet also for our practice schedule. So people know who's practicing what, and if they want to sign up for practice time, they can sign up for it as well. So I found this to be a highly useful feature.
Instead of going in front of the office and just having to sign up. Yes?
Why this over Google Calendar?
Can you give everyone access to Google Calendar such that they could sign up?
You can make
Yeah.
appointment slots, so that
Okay.
so that what I was seeing was all that blank space, and I was wondering if you give them rules about you can't take all of my time, and what you can do with Google Calendar is say, here are the times that are available for appointments.
Well, I would consider it a quality problem if they tried to sign up for all of my time. That has never happened because they usually have classes and
Yeah.
what have you. So usually it's the opposite problem. They can only have 15 minutes.
Yeah.
It's perhaps just the case that I'm not as familiar with that program. I have struggled a lot with calendar-related issues, trying to find one because the calendars because we use Outlook, that calendar doesn't mesh with the iCalendar and Google Calendar and all this kind of thing. So this for me was just the most efficient way for now.